are the United States most famous for? If you ask around, the answer may be the technology innovation, the Hollywood, or even the whole clans of the Kardashians. Well, however, to be more precise, the greatest achievement of the United States is by meddling in another country and exporting the infamous color revolution abroad. Well, I didn't think so before, but after what has been happening in my town for the past 2 years, this inevitable proof and trace is simply hard to ignore. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs has recently compiled a detailed dated list of evidence showcasing the interference, and here comes the list. Number 1. Interfering by enacting Hong Kong-related acts. Well, first things first, Hong Kong is an inalienable part of China, not some states of the Great America. But for some strange reason, these American uncles are so obsessed with Hong Kong. The then President Trump signed the Hong Kong Autonomy Act in July 2020. Then Meeks, chairman of the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the United States House of Representatives, introduced a, watch this, very long, continued violation of rights and freedom of the people of Hong Kong by the People's Republic of China and the government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. There's also a list of ill-intended bills that is waiting in line, like Rubio's Hong Kong Safe Harbor Act and the crackdown by governments of the People's Republic of China and the Chinese Communist Party in Hong Kong, etc., etc. So what kind of obsession is this? What are you doing? Number 2. Imposing sanctions to obstruct the implementation of national security law in Hong Kong. In May 2020, Trump announced the revocation of the special status of preferential economic treatment for Hong Kong. Then, basically every other month, you see announcements and fabricated statements to make the latest sanction somewhat looking reasonable. Oh, and don't forget our traders in town been doing their job in compiling, or to be more precise, faking the report for them. On the 16th of July 2021, the Department of State's Departments of Commerce, Departments of Homeland Security, and Department of Treasury jointly issued a report called the Hong Kong Business Advisory, trying to vilify our business environment and the one country, two system policy. Then, later, 7 of the central government's liaison office officials in Hong Kong were sanctioned. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, losing his first battle in Alaska, issued his revenge statement on making 1 year of Hong Kong's national security law, trying to make himself relevant and looking tough. Number 3. Smearing on Hong Kong's lawful enforcement actions and judicial work. While some people always feel that lying is not a big deal, especially when their best interests are in line. Faking stories are just some convenient tools to convince and convert people into their hardcore supporters. In June 2019, while the streets of Hong Kong is filled with violence, rioters, and arms in hand, the United States House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made a notorious statement describing the chaotic situation a beautiful sight to behold, and urged these so-called freedom fighters to take on the government. Despite the fact that our streets is filled with petrol bombs and fully masked up rioters, American statements were issued every other week or so by different high-level officials, claiming that they would stand with the Hong Kong people and they want to see a humane solution, and fabricating the so-called China threat, etc., etc. So deliberate, so disgusting. Number 4. Provide supporting platforms to anti-China and Hong Kong independence activists. Aiming to mislead the public, a bunch of blood-sucking, foreign-funded political puppets in Hong Kong colluded with American politicians like Nancy Pelosi, Mike Pompeo, and Matthew Pottinger, etc., etc., in numerous occasions to justify their actions, like attending hearings on Hong Kong matter and asking the Hong Kong XAR government to withdraw the draft amendments, and even went so far to nominating this so-called pro-democracy movement into the Nobel Peace Prize. Are you serious? A Nobel Peace Prize for the terrorists? Really? Number 5. Ganging up to interfere with Hong Kong matter. On the 27th May 2020, the United States mission to the United Nations issued a statement calling for the United Nations Security Council meeting on Hong Kong. The statement claimed that Hong Kong is a matter of urgent global concern that implicates international peace and security. Not so sure about the work global there, but I mean, as an ordinary citizen in Hong Kong, it's a nightmare not knowing which part of Hong Kong is safe. Before the enactment of the national security law, you had to look at the daily rioting schedule to plan your days around it, just to make sure you don't get pushed around or even beaten by those terrorists. At the same time, the Five Eyes are blind enough to issue different joint statements on Hong Kong matters despite the visible violence in the streets. And Canada issued a joint statement during the 47th sessions of the United Nations Human Rights Council against China, expressing concern over human rights abuses in Hong Kong. Yep, the human rights abuses of those rioters, not the poor guy who got lit up and turned into a human fireball, not those poor kids who got pushed around and threatened to death by those just being a child of the policeman. The rioters. So these are the 5 points for your short read. If you guys are interested in the detailed list, I strongly encourage you to click into the PRC MFA news page and read through. I'm Nixie Lam, Election Committee member in Hong Kong. Enjoy and stay tuned.